And stayed up all night.
One time it rained.
One time
Yeah, that did rain.
And there was about 15 of us left.
Yeah, there was, we got stripped pretty clean.
That's unbelievable, and it was all you guys that were there.
Well, yeah, not one of these people left.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 15 were from New Hampshire or coming to New Hampshire.
So we
Two
stayed.
more coming to 13.
Yeah, so there's a couple more coming, so we just stayed. And it was funny, and that gal Maria, who just became a citizen, the German gal, right? She's at the gate. I'm coming in the gate, right, before I know that all the Oath Keepers have split, right? I'm pulling in because we had radio checks at the gate, and so I stopped there and checked with Maria, and she goes, "Where did they all go?" She goes, "Why did they run off? Did they think they could not be killed? Were they cowards?" And she's just in her German, she's full German, and she's stout. I mean, she's like, and I'm like, oh my God, and I had no idea they all left. And she was like, she goes, then why did they come? And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, wow, Maria. So I go inside, and I see what had happened. They all ran by her to get out of town, right? So Maria wasn't leaving. She was not leaving. And actually, then after that is there's a fellow there named Ryan Payne. You guys have probably read a little bit about his name, who was supposedly an Army Ranger, and everybody was a Fed. I heard that everywhere. This guy's a Fed, that guy's a Fed, this guy's a Fed, everybody's a Fed. And so you just had to blow off the rumors because there was a lot of psyops going on, the psychological warfare going on, and they were trying to divide us all up, which I think this drone thing was like the best of them, and because it definitely split the forces. So we had a meeting the next morning. We had a group where we'd all get together, and then we'd talk about issues going on. And Ryan Payne was the liaison. He got there before we did, between the Bundys and all the militia groups and that. So actually between me and the Bundys and then and the Minutemen. And so everybody was really upset that the Oath Keepers had taken off, and obviously. And so during that conversation is we voted that if in fact any of the Oath Keepers want to come back, they're welcome back. But they had to make sure they would tell them that their allegiance was to the camp command, that they wouldn't just take off if Stuart Rhodes called them off and ran them off again, because you can't have it. I'd rather just have these guys up there with 5,000 people, 10,000 that I can't count on. Right. And because I knew these guys were there, and they would not run, no matter what the odds were. And so anyway, so we had a vote on that if in fact, as this committee, that if any of the Oath Keepers wanted to come back, they just had to make sure that they were going to follow camp command, that they weren't going to take off. So then Ryan Payne, like a jackass he was, as he popped off in that, made a comment about in war and combat, that if people ran off in the face of the enemy, that in fact they'd get shot. And that got put out over the internet, which I didn't see that. I didn't see that part, but I saw it. But there was no pulling the words back at that particular point in time. But I did say something to him after that meeting about that. I said, that wasn't good. That was unnecessary. And then in the meeting we had the next morning, I addressed it before the committee that was gathered, and Brian apologized for it. And just said we can't have that kind of talk. It's just not proactive or not good for us. But some of the Oath Keepers came back. We had a few of them that came back, and actually 3 of them were from Stuart Rhodes' town that he lives in, goes to his church that he goes to. And I came back into camp the next day. I was in camp, and they're standing there with their heads hanging down. And I looked at them, and I knew these guys. Because you get to know everybody, right? And their heads were hanging down. I said, "What's up?" And they go, "Oh, man, we left and all that." And I said, "Hey, no harm, no foul. You're back. You guys can stay. We're staying." And I said, "I love you guys." Now, it was unfair for him to put you in that position. That was an unfair call by deemed commander, and they should have never put you guys in that position, any of you, and he was wrong to do it. That's on him, not on you. But I expect you to stay. If you're going to stay, then you're going to stay under the command. If you're not, then you got to go. And they stayed. And one of them actually hit, because they were going back home anyways. And that was pretty much how the And then the Oath Keepers came out, and Stewart, I think, went into a defensive mode, and he made a couple videos out, and then he tried to slam everybody who stayed, which is kind of ironic, the guys who stayed with the bad guys. And personally, I think Stuart Rhodes should lead the Oath Keepers, and they should put somebody else in command of the Oath Keepers, and that in fact won't run into the face of fire. About the Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers, the guys in there that have signed up with them, they're good guys. Good guys and gals. And but if command screws up, I mean, just like the Custer did, right? If the command screws up, it's the troops pay the price, and I think that's truly what happened. And I don't hold any of those individual Oath Keepers at fault over that, but I certainly do lay it right on Stuart Rhodes' shoulders, and he should have stepped up to the plate after making that bad call and just called me up or came over to camp and said, "Hey Jerry, look, I blew it." Yep. You know, and that would have been that. We said, "Okay, don't we all?" Right? But instead, he went on the attack. And that's what he's been doing, and he's been blackballing people off the Oath Keeper website. And I mean, I paid my $40 a week before I got there, starting signed up.
So when he got home, the packet was waiting for him.
So I just want any of you that are Oath Keepers to keep that in mind when you're reading this stuff. This is what happened from the guys who were there, and they're just covering. Stewart's just covering his fanny. It's a CYA thing. There was a question, so we'll do it. Push it to Q&A. We have a question.
Yeah, Jerry, as a point of clarification, BLM is an agency, correct?
Right, it's the Bureau of Land Management. It falls under the Secretary of Agriculture.
Okay, and so they don't have an enforcement powers, do they? Police powers?
Yes, they do.
No, they have none. It's illegal, actually, for them to...
Administrative.
Oh, so the sniper on the hill?
No.
Yeah.
3. Who?
3. We don't know exactly who they were. I watched them get out of their car the night before, and it was definitely not military. It was definitely some type of law enforcement, because I was way down the road. I won't tell you how I saw them, but I watched them, and I watched them get out of their car. And then when this car would stop and race through town, race across the bridge, go over to the backside of where we were, and then they'd shine a light, hit the light was, and the car would stop. The guy would bail out with his rifle, and then up he'd go. And they did that with 3 guys. And the next morning, I know Josh, some of you guys saw that team up on along the ridge line back behind camp. And,
so the information I sent out was correct.
Yeah, the reason for asking the question is the BLM got all the attention. But the true story is there had been a lot more involvement by others, okay, behind the scenes that we really don't have a lot of knowledge about.
That knowledge will be coming out, because when BLM took off and abandoned their site, they left a lot of paperwork in the trash, which tied in all the alphabet soup agencies, and we're talking FBI, ATF, all those guys, and they got documents tying them all together that were involved in this. I personally think some of those guys, and Kenny, you might even speak to that, is that some of those guys down there under the bridge were mercs of some sort. You know, I don't think that they were your regular run-of-the-mill BLM people. I watched them stacked up, and they weren't stacked up like you'd expect a BLM agent to be. They were pro, some of those boys down there.
Very well.
It's not beneath the United Nations to hire outside contractors to do their dirty work. They do it
Or
all.
our government. I mean, we are Blackwater. Mac? Oh, I'm sorry. Mac, wait 1 sec, we'll go to
Well,
him.
just real quick, you actually said that you felt that if they did do the drone strike, that the American people would rise up, right?
Yes, I did say
I
that.
mean, do you really think that would actually happen? I mean,
Absolutely.
But do you remember Ruby Ridge though? It was a blur. I mean, it took years for people to wake up,
Social
man.
media, Ruby Ridge, or Waco, Texas, or the Merle Building in Oklahoma City. Just everybody's got a smartphone.
I mean, but do you really think that there's that many people that would actually risk their comfies
You
on
understand
everything?
the magnitude of our camp. Our camp was spread out. Plus, there were protesters in other areas that weren't too far away.
They would have had to kill all of them too. I mean, there was probably a 2 square mile area of people.
Not to mention, at the Bundy Ranch, there was about 40 grandchildren, about this big, running around. So, yeah.
I'm with you 100%.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the observation. I just don't have that much faith in American
One
people.
thing you have to take into account that's the difference between the Waco and the Ruby Ridge
is we had people from all over the country showing up with supplies. I mean, we could have stayed out there for at least another 4 months just on the supplies we had, if not, no other supplies came in.
They're still coming.
We could have, and there was stuff still coming in, so unlike the Ruby Ridge and Waco, we did actually have the full support of the people sending everything. People calling up every day to find out what we needed, which you didn't get with the Ruby Ridge or the Waco. So yes, I do believe everybody
They'd
that
have
was
to shut the
fencing,
roads
everybody
coming
that was
into our
Timber Road
camp
would have
quite a
said-
ways out, and that would never stand.
People
We
would-
had a lot of former law enforcement, actually, retired law enforcement, retired military, but a lot of law enforcement that were actually at the camp. I dealt with a lot of those people there, and they knew what was going on. We actually, Josh, my son, can tell the story. You might want to tell the story about you going into town.
And Jack and I had gone into Mesquite and forgot what we were doing at Walmart, and but we were actually in John's car. He has a Subaru, New Hampshire plates on it. Jack hadn't come out yet. I was sitting in there, and I see a squad car pull up, Mesquite Police, and I'm going, oh, freaking great, you know. I'm in my camouflage and all this, and so he pulls up, rolls his window down. He goes, "Are you from New Hampshire?" I go, "Yep." And he goes, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Sure. So I get out of the vehicle, and the guy comes over and hugs me and shakes my hand. And he's a uniformed Mesquite police officer. Yeah, he grew up with Ryan Bundy since they were kids, and his dad and Cliven had been friends for 40 years. And so he knew what was going on there, and he was telling Jack and I that his son and his daughter go out, they'll go four-wheeling, and the BLM likes to take these posts and put them right in the middle of all the trails out there. This is a active police officer, and he pulls them out and throws them on the side of the road so him and his kids can go four-wheeling. And this happens all over the place out there. I mean, when we were coming back through Utah, you look up and just as far as you can see on any trail, boom, BLM post right in the middle of all the trails.
We stopped, when we stopped in Utah, there was a gal that came over at the gas pumps and told us, if you guys need a place to stay, she had a ranch back up in the hills up there. She goes, "You guys can stay there as long as you want. I'll do your laundry and cook for you." And we had that everywhere we went, not just in Utah, but the West is, we don't have a good picture of what's happening out West because we're so far east. But I've got to tell you is the Western people are outraged at the federal government. They are up to here with them in the BLM, and they were watching this. That's why they just had this last weekend, a ride through, I forgot the name of the canyon, but we got invited to it while we're there, but the canyon, the BLM had shut down in Utah, and they did it organized by a city councilman, a ride through this canyon on land that the BLM has taken. I want to clarify something, especially because we're recording this, what happens with the BLM. Is the Bundy family, when that land was settled in the 1870s, is they've got 160 acres, and the property goes out like a wagon wheel around the outside of this hub, which is their 160 acres, which sets right on the Virgin River, and it's not that much of a river, but it is a river, and what happened is when that family had settled that property, and I think it was actually on the wife's side, is when that property was settled, is they paid the federal government a fee, a grazing fee, which was a one-time pay fee that was transferable from generation to generation of the family. So when they settled that, it's because mind you, it was in the 1870s, and that land was pretty vacant out there, and the government wanted people to move out there. They were trying to entice them to go. So that family paid that grazing fee so they could graze cattle on that land, on that 600,000 acres that surrounded their property for eternity, because that fee was a one-time paid fee. What happened is, I think it was sometime, probably about 100 years afterwards, when the BLM decided to show up, and they made the BLM. The BLM had a better idea.
1926.
46. So we're in the 46 area. What happened is the BLM came up with an idea. Is they were gonna take care of the conservation of that land. And as a matter of fact, all of those grazing lands throughout America. And they were going to charge a per head fee. So if you wanted to have your cattle on there, you'd pay X dollars a head or X cents a head. So the Bundys and most of the ranchers, in fact, went ahead with that because it also lightened the load on them, because then they didn't have to take care of the water and the troughs and all of those things that they've been taking care of for generations. Well, the BLM took the money, didn't do the work.
Roch TV.